Your top stories this evening's JAGDEO is danger to himself. JAGDEO and RAMOTAR encouraged border dispute, says Dr. Joey JAGAN. Slain Guyanese NYPD cop brought home to be laid to rest on Saturday. Guyana preparing for oil production. UNDP lending assistance in preparation. And Red House lease arrangement shocking, says Dr. JAGAN. Dr. Chetty JAGAN would have never endorsed that lease. HGP Nightly News begins now. Good evening. I'm Travis Chase with the Friday, October 30 edition of the HGP Nightly News. Here is what you need to know this evening. Killed in the line of duty and returned home a law enforcement hero by scores of his NYPD colleagues. A sad homecoming for a brave policeman who paid the ultimate price for going the extra mile. Here is more. The body of Guyanese NYPD officer Randolph Holder touched down at the Chetty JAGAN International Airport Thursday evening exactly at 8:55 on Fly Jamaica. Well over 3 dozen NYPD officers and Mr. Holder's family accompanied the body to his homeland, Guyana. Holder, 33, a third-generation cop, was killed Tuesday night last, the 20th of October, while chasing a gunman along the FDR Drive footpath near 120th Street, Harlem. Mourners packed the Chetty JAGAN International Airport's airside to see the arrival of Holder's body. The fallen policeman's body was taken off a Fly Jamaica-sponsored flight by 6 fellow members of the NYPD, as ranks of the Ghana Police Force in ceremonial attire flanked the vehicle. Guyanese Holder was the 4th NYPD officer slain in 10 months. His father, Randolph Holder Sr., said his son always wanted to be a policeman, but his service as an NYPD detective was cut short.
I'm just saddened by the sudden death of my son, Randolph Holder Jr. He was a very disciplined man, and always keep his heads up high when you walk. Very ambitious. All of his life he had wanted to be a policeman. Unfortunately, he did, and October the 20th, approximately 8:30, that was the end of his tour.
Ranks of the Ghana Police Force and Holder's NYPD colleagues escorted the hearse to Merriman's funeral home, where the body is being kept before burial on Saturday. Holder's captain, RONDELL ORILEY BOVELL, said that the NYPD is feeling the loss of Holder.
He was a wonderful person. His commanding officer, the officers that he worked with, those that he trained with, they are feeling the loss, and they have nothing but positive things to say about him.
The captain assured that the many Guyanese NYPD officers are giving full support to the relatives and friends of Randolph Holder.
We have a lot of Guyanese officers that are here to support the family. We have approximately 103 officers that are here, of which over 60-something are Guyanese.
Meanwhile, Holder's killer, Tyrone Peanut Howard, appeared in a Bronx courtroom Thursday to face charges of selling crack cocaine while behind bars on Rikers Island 2 years ago. The defendant was wanted on a Bronx warrant after missing a September 29 court date in the case. Cops were also pursuing him in a drug-related September 1 shooting in East Harlem at the time of the Holder shooting. Reporting for HGP Nightly News from the Chetty JAGAN International Airport, Timiri, I am Travis Chase. Meanwhile, all new NYPD recruits are required to write a letter saying why they want to become a cop. Police Commissioner of the New York Police Department, William Bratton, will now read from Holder's letter dated July 10, 2010. Listen.
My name is Randolph Holder, born March 19, 1982, in Georgetown, Guyana. Growing up, all I wanted to do was to make a difference in my community and become a role model. In November of 2002, I migrated to the United States of America to live with Father. When I read this letter and I saw that term, to live with Father, I was struck with Father. Not my father, not my dad, not my pop, but Father. The respect, sir, that he must have had for you, the term Father denotes that. I was just extraordinarily touched by that term in this letter. The love that he must have had for you. My first real job was working as a security officer. Most of the managers were retired NYPD officers, and they always talked a lot about how they changed their communities. That's when I decided I could be a role model and make a difference in my community and in New York. In December 2010, I will graduate from the NYPD Academy to become a police officer in the greatest police department in the world. For your information, Randolph Holder, probationary police officer. Randy, you are indeed a role model. You made a difference. And from your loss, we can take this. We can change the fact that the city came to know you too late, because even though service is not compelled in this country, public safety is a shared responsibility. We all have to come together to help the good people and to get the evil people off the streets, to steer the kids on the precipice to the right side and not the wrong side. All of us, the shared responsibility to keep each other safe. It can't be just what cops do. It has to be what all of us do. And that will be a fitting legacy for Detective First Grade Randy Holder, Shield number 9657, who served us all. If we want to remember him and to honor him, coming together to finish his work is the way. It's what we all can do. It's what we all, community and police, need to do. It's our shared responsibility. So Detective Randolph Holder, you are relieved of your duty as a New York City police officer, guardian at the gates of New York City, and we send you on your way to your new assignment to be a guardian angel at the gates of heaven.
May his soul rest in peace. Stay with us. More news ahead. Thanks for staying tuned to the HGP Nightly News. Treasonous. That's how Dr. Joey Jagan described the statements made by opposition leader JAGDEO in relation to that proposed resolution to the Venezuela spat. He said leaders of the PPP failed in their own efforts to govern effectively. Kingsley Bryan reports.
I'm basically trying to establish if you think that is a wise pronouncement given the current turmoil, existing between Guyana and Venezuela.
I think Mr. JAGDEO is becoming a danger to himself. And that is the worst place to get, when you become a danger to yourself. And what he talking about there?
That was Dr. Joey Jagan doing an exclusive interview with Nightly News on Thursday at his Charlotte Street office. He was responding to the opposition leader's view that the border issue with Venezuela could be easier resolved by giving that country some of Guyana's maritime space. The riled-up Jagan said, in his view, the issues with Venezuela were encouraged by the previous administration.
JAGDEO's problem, and he showed it in the campaign trail, is that once his mouth opens, he starts to talk. The words just get confusing, and I don't even think he understands what he said. Because, this thing here is political. And Mr. JAGDEO and Mr. RAMOTAR encouraged this by bringing Maduro here. First guest they had was President Maduro. Treat him like royalty here. And while Maduro is scheming to take what we got. It's as simple as that.
Dr. Jagan said President Maduro would not be the president of Venezuela for long, and any act of sympathy shown to him in relation to the border dispute, in his view, should be considered an act of disloyalty.
So anybody who's sympathetic to Maduro, as far as I'm concerned, is committing treason in this country. That's my position. So I ain't giving nothing to Maduro. That's my position.
He further stated that the government and other observers may not share his view, but the younger Jagan said he still holds firm to the principles laid down by his late father, and that of his godfather, the late President Burnham.
As far as I'm concerned, the borders that represent Guyana are the borders. My godfather said not a blade of grass, and that's why I believe him.
Dr. Jagan said the former administration's approach to diplomacy and foreign investment leaves much to be desired. He cited the ongoing back and forth between former President RAMOTAR and the EU ambassador to Guyana as one such example.
And everything he writes in the paper is a waste of time. And Mr. RAMOTAR should stop now. It's about time. Please, stop, Mr. RAMOTAR. You had your day, you had your fill, and it's over.
For HGP Nightly News, Kingsley Bryan.
Thank you, Kingsley. Guyana is preparing for the flow of oil, even though the country is years away from its first barrel. Minister of Governance RAPHAEL TROTMAN announced on Friday that oil is coming and the country must be ready for the depth of what is to come. More from Handel Duncan.
In early May of this year, it was announced that ExxonMobil had discovered hydrocarbons in an area referred to as Stabroek Block. But while it will take some amount of years before any extraction could commence, the government is already looking at areas such as governance, revenue transparency and management, regulatory and legal framework, among others, to ensure that the full benefits of such finds can be realized. In its preparatory stage, the government is receiving support from several partners, one being the United Nations Development Programme, UNDP. UNDP resident representative Khadija Musa explained that there is a view whereby having oil or gas is seen as a curse.
And if it is, why and how does very rich resources become a curse? And in thinking about that, I came to the conclusion that these resources only become a curse if there's no capacity in the country, if wrong policies are implemented, and if consultation is not made throughout the community in order to develop the resources.
The preparation for the development of a full-fledged oil and gas sector requires the strengthening of institutional frameworks within sectors like natural resource, foreign affairs, education systems, social protection, and the environment. Here is Minister of Governance RAPHAEL TROTMAN.
Oil is coming. We must prepare and become adept to what is going to be bequeathed and placed into our hands. We must make the necessary efforts to ensure that in decades and centuries to come, we have something to show for sustainable utilization of our natural resources. We have demonstrated our willingness to take advice and support by embracing not only the UNDP, but also the Commonwealth Secretariat, and I welcome our friend back to Guyana, with the support in the development of our draft National Upstream Oil and Gas Policy. The Canadian government's offer of the depth of resources available in the University of Calgary to guide the development of a sovereign wealth fund.
The minister went further, stating that in recognizing the mandate given to the government, it is important to note that against all opposition, foreign or otherwise, there will be no surrender and there will be no shirking of responsibilities. Neither will Guyana be counted as coward sellouts.
We regard our responsibility as a sacred one entrusted into our hands to act as guardians and stewards over the affairs of state and the national patrimony of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana.
Issues of environmental, including oil spill prevention and response, and social safeguards, and the alignment of the sector management within the country's environmental priorities are also being addressed adequately, Minister Trotman added. The disclosures made were at a 2-day workshop dubbed Building Capacity for Managing the Hydrocarbon Sector in Guyana at the Archer Chung Convention Center. Handel Duncan, HGP Nightly News.
Thank you, Handel. President Granger stresses the need to urgently reshape education policies in Guyana, despite producing the region's top students for both the CSEC and CAPE examinations. Royden James reports.
This year is no exception. Guyana's students did exceedingly well at both the CXC and CAPE examinations. But that doesn't mean that the education system is the best this country can have. And because of this fact, President David Granger, while congratulating the high flyers, announced a national policy that will focus on universal secondary education, university-level qualified teachers, and well-equipped schools.
We want, in our entire education system, a function that will produce citizens of quality, citizens who will be happy to remain here in Guyana to build our bountiful, our beautiful nation. We want a system that will extend access to the information superhighway to support the education of our entire nation.
The president believes that this teachers first approach, combined with the furnishing of every secondary school with well-equipped science and computer laboratories, information and communications technology, infrastructure and libraries, will have a transformative impact on the education sector and the country as a whole.
And I quote from our Constitution, "Every citizen has the right to free education from nursery to university, as well as at non-formal places where opportunities are provided for education and training. It is the duty of the state to provide education that will include curricula designed to reflect the cultural diversities of Guyana and disciplines that are necessary to prepare students to deal with social issues and to meet the challenges of the modern technological age."
Also speaking at the ceremony was Education Minister Dr. RUPERT, who told of the government plans to ensure that not only a few, but most of the country's students become high flyers in future examinations.
We want to ensure that we are producing 21st century citizens, Guyanese citizens of the 21st century. Which is to say that we must, I believe, inculcate in all of our students a real love of country and a passion for service. This to me is really crucial if we are talking about producing the 21st century Guyanese.
Awards were given out to the 5 top performers at the National Grade 6 assessment level. Victoria Najab, Vamanan Hirilal and Mohini Sudaman from the Swarswati Vidya Nikitan School, Alia Rashid and Jachindra Prasad from Anarujain Secondary took home the awards for Best Junior Secondary School Performers. The first ever Desiree Fox Scholarship Award was presented to Trishelle Torres from the Santa Rosa Secondary. Awards were also handed out to students who copped 6 of the Caribbean Examination Council's regional awards. These awardees include Cecil Cox and Shanta Noel for CAPE, and Victoria Najab, Joshana Hopkinson, Shannon Woodruff, and Alia Rashid, who were named most outstanding candidates at the CSEC level for 2015. A number of other awards were given out to top performers from the various technical institutes, the Carnegie School of Home Economics, and the Cyril Potter College of Education. Royden James, HGP Nightly News.
Thank you, Royden. Stay with us. More news ahead. Thanks for staying with us. That Red House lease, orchestrated by leading figures in the hierarchy of the PPPC, would never have been endorsed by the late Dr. Cheddi Jagan. The man who said that is Dr. Joey Jagan, son of the late president. He spoke with Kingsley Bryan.
Attorney General Basil Williams on Wednesday announced that the administration wanted to repossess Red House, where the PPP administration had established the Cheddi Jagan Research Center. The Granger administration is considering setting up a research center for all previous Guyanese presidents. Former President Donald RAMOTAR responded, saying that if the government wants a research center for past presidents, let them build one. However, Dr. Joey Jagan, the sole son of the late president, thinks otherwise. I would like to know, what are your thoughts on this proposal by the new administration as it relates to the Red House?
Well, that's a tricky question because I'd have to give you a little background on it.
The background provided by Dr. Jagan was one that showed him being sidestepped as the only son of Dr. Chedi Jagan on all the consultations which led to the Red House lease.
I was never once consulted, never invited, never nothing by the people whose name you see in the list, including my sister.
The younger Jagan said the details coming out of that lease agreement are quite astonishing.
After the information has been divulged about the lease they had, the fixing the money, I find it shocking, to say the least, that whoever were in that panel there that made that deal would make a deal like that. Because my father, Chedi Jagan, would have never approved of that.
He expressed that such a venture should be privately supported, as is seen in other places. But he also acknowledged that there is a rich history attached to the Red House and the Jagans.
Don't necessarily agree with everything that's said. My father is the only leader of Guyana to have lived in Red House. And if people could understand that his research center, I think, is vital. I think a research center is very important, but it should be supported by private sector, private people who you should raise money from and sustain it, like the Clinton Foundation.
Dr. Jagan maintained that research centers for presidents should not put a dent on the national purse, and its maintenance should not be a taxpayer's responsibility. But how does he feel about the administration's proposal for a research center for all Guyanese presidents?
So I'm glad you asked the question. I thank you for that, because my opinion is that I'm not saying to separate. I feel that Mr. Burnham and Mr. Hoyt and Mr. JAGDEO should have places, and Mr. RAMOTAR too, a research center as to their accomplishments or what they got done.
For HGP Nightly News, Kingsley Bryan.
Thank you, Kingsley. From a man who knows the local government system inside out, having served as local government minister, Llewellyn John is saying that the absence of local government elections during the past few decades did not really affect the country, but the establishment of the interim management committees did. Here is Rodin James with more.
Guyana has not held local government elections for more than 20 years. This caused local government organs to function under the central government. For former local government minister Llewellyn John, despite not having the elections, political power could have still been given to the people.
Well, I don't think it's an extreme term of negative impact. I think what was more a serious mistake was to create the interim management committees, because it meant that you were taking away from the people the powers which they had. And indeed, the government faced two actions which are still pending before the government for the dissolution of certain communities.
He said the absence of those elections did not impact on the country negative, but acknowledged that much more could have been achieved if the elections were held.
The question of the negative impact, if you say negative, I would say that more or less one would say there was some measure of stagnation. I don't think that I share this question of negative impact. The system was there. The people understood that they had to create their own governance.
Mr. John recommended that the whole aspect of local government elections should be handled by the younger folks while getting guidance from the central government. This, he says, will create reputable statesmen and women.
The younger people saw the local government system as a training ground for the ascension to the central government. For instance, Janet Jagan was a councillor of the Georgetown City Council. Burnham was a councillor of the Georgetown City Council. Merriman was a councillor of the Georgetown City Council. In short, what was important was that you do not only talk of bringing the younger people into local government.
Local government elections was last held in Guyana in 1994. In the most recent sitting of the National Assembly, Minister of Communities Ronald Bulkan stated that the elections will be held in the first quarter of 2016. Royden James, HGP Nightly News.
Sean Embrack is at your sports desk after the break.